for video. So it looks like we now have the release of GoldHEN version 2.4b18.4, which now adds official support for firmwares 12.0 and 12.02. So we can now jailbreak on 12.0 to 12.02 using GoldHEN. Previously, we've had to use the open source versions of HEN from EchoStretch and Al-Aziv, which they've been updating, which is still a great solution and it works pretty well. But if you want all of the extra features that are built into GoldHEN, you can now access it on 12.0 and 12.02. So this coming to us from Sistro here, who says, "Hi all, the beta is out. Sorry for the wait, but I was very busy these weeks. This release is just B18.3 with 12.0 and 12.02 support. Next release will add new features yet in testing and new firmware support. Thanks to my friends CTN and Chameleon for their continuous support, not only technical. Thanks also to everyone who supported my project on Ko-Fi." So changelog, you can see here we have 12.0 and 12.02 support. So it is just version 18.3, the previous version of GoldHEN. So there aren't going to be any new features in this build, apart from the fact that it now supports these higher firmwares, 12.0 and 12.02. It does look like there is a bigger update in the works though. You can see here, next release will add new features, which are in testing, and new firmware support. We also got a little bit more from Chameleon on this, who says GoldHEN is still work in progress for 11.02 plus. Just a little busy. On the other hand, I recall someone announced a semi-persistent way to enable the jailbreak. Based on our investigation, it seems to be related with some parsing stuff on XML, and yes, can be used with WebKit. So that would suggest that they're looking into the semi-persistence, which is something that Al-Aziv talked about back in September of last year, which is, you know, like the idea of being able to continue to use the jailbreak after a reboot without having to completely reload it again from scratch. However, it has not yet been released yet, and Al-Aziv did say it may be a long time before it gets released. So that is something that it looks like the GoldHEN team, Chameleon, CTN, Sistro perhaps are looking into here. Maybe for the next release, who knows? We'll have to wait and see there. So that is the latest information there. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can get GoldHEN up and running on our 12.02 console here, or 12.0 console. So of course, you can support Sistro by leaving a donation. I would recommend doing that, of course, to help support Sistro's work, show that you care, and then that will maybe provide more motivation for Sistro to continue to release these updates for GoldHEN. But you are not required to pay to get the download. It is free. You can just enter 0 as the amount and click Get Now in order to get the download. Google Chrome did mark it as a dangerous file when I tried to download it, so I did have to go into the download section, the download manager, and tell it to download it anyway. So as you can see here, we have got our USB drive. So you want to grab yourself a USB drive that's formatted in exFAT format. And then if we go into that USB drive here, we'll open up the 7-zip file. So it is a 7-zip, so you'll need 7-zip or WinRAR to open the file itself. So I'll leave a link to that down in the video description. But basically, you can see we've got it here. We don't need the ppPwn stage 2 loader because we're, of course, using the new jailbreak here. So we just need to grab the goldhen.bin file, copy it to the root of our USB, and then we need to rename this to payload.bin, assuming you're using the autoloader to load this. Also, make sure you go to View in the settings here and go to Show File Name Extensions. Make sure that is ticked so that you can see the full file name and make sure it is payload.bin. So we're going to go ahead and just call it payload.bin and keep it on the root of our USB. And then we'll just go ahead and eject our USB drive and plug it into our PS4. So I've got the autoloader set up with my Lua game, so it will automatically try and load the payload from the USB. So previously I was loading the HEN VTX, or the open source versions of HEN. So that is the one that is on the hard drive, but what it should do is load the one from the USB and also copy that to the data folder on the hard drive. So the previous version of HEN I was using that was in the data folder will get replaced with the new GoldHEN payload that we put on the USB drive. If you don't already have the autoloader set up, I do have a tutorial that already shows how to get that save file on there so that you can use it to load the jailbreak. Obviously, I'll have a more complete beginner's guide coming out fairly soon. So all we need to do is run our game with the autoloader and we should get it running GoldHEN here. So let's see what happens. So we get our PS4 Auto Lua loader for 12.02. Payload gets copied and we can see GoldHEN is already running by the icon in the top left hand corner. And there it is, GoldHEN version 2.4b18.4 is loaded. We've got the bin loader loading as well, the FTP server. We'll likely, okay, I don't have FTP server enabled, but if we head into our server settings, I can enable that as well and get FTP running. And as you can see, we have our full GoldHEN now running on 12.02. We've got our debug settings with our package installer, all of the options in here, our cheat settings. We can enable, of course, our show title ID labels for our games, the ability to download the latest cheats. All of that good stuff is in there. Our plugin settings, we can enable the game patch plugin and the plugins loader. Everything is in here. Klog server, our settings option. We don't need to use the PPPoE patch because that again is only for the ppPwn exploit, but we've got our rest mode support in there as well. So there you go. As you can see, we have GoldHEN up and running. We should be able to load our homebrew applications. Let's try and run the Apollo save tool. And we can see that is also running. So we've got our homebrew running through it, and our fake packages, of course, we can run. So we are all good to go here. And if we head into our settings, system information, you can see we have hen on 12.02. So GoldHEN successfully working there on the latest jailbreakable firmware. This will work again on 12.0 to 12.02. So what, of course, if you are on a firmware like 11.02, 11.50, 11.52 right now? Well, you have a couple of options. One option, of course, is that you can just update your console to 12.0 or 12.02. All you need to do is head to one of the following websites, either this one here, or you can go to this one. So either one of these websites, there's a few other ones you can go to download previous firmware versions. You just download the retail firmware for 12.02 and you put it on your USB drive. Simply create a PS4 folder, and then inside that folder you create an update folder, and inside that folder you copy the update file inside and make sure it's named PS4 update.pup in uppercase characters, and that all of the characters for the folder names are all uppercase, and you should be good. You can plug that into your console. You can go to the system software update section, make sure you have disconnected from the internet before doing so, and then when you go to the system software update section, you'll have the option to update to 12.02 from your USB drive, and you can do that. So that's one option. Personally, I would not recommend updating to 12.02 just to access GoldHEN right now if you're on 11.02 to 11.52, mainly because we don't know if we might get some kind of future WebKit exploits that would allow us to load the jailbreak from the web browser. And if that does come out in the future, we don't know what firmware that might come out for. So we could get a new web browser based version of the exploit that works up to 11.52, just hypothetically. And then if you'd already updated to 12.02, then unfortunately you wouldn't be able to take advantage of that. You'd have missed out on the ability to be able to load the jailbreak from the web browser because you updated to 12.02. So for that reason, it's best not to update, especially since 12.02 actually has an update note that says they made some security fixes to the system software in 12.02. So there could be something that got patched there that you probably don't want to update to 12.02 if you're on 11.02 to 11.52. You're better off just staying on your current firmware. Use the open source versions of HEN from Aliasive and EchoStretch, which are being constantly updated. They've recently had things like FTP server, plugin support, Klog server recently included. There's also going to be a new Shell UI plugin that's been added to the open source versions of HEN, which will give you all of these additional options like a package installer to install packages from the hard drive, as well as from the USB, as well as all the options to enable and disable certain things like a firmware update blocker, certain patches that you can enable and disable, target ID spoofing, disabling ASLR, and various other patches that you can enable and disable from this new menu that's going to be added to the open source versions of HEN. So you have good options to just jailbreak the console using these open source versions. And then of course, GoldHEN will eventually get support for your firmware, and then you can switch over to that if you want to once it becomes available. Definitely better doing that than updating to 12.02, which could end up patching some future exploit, like a future WebKit exploit that you could have used. So definitely better to stay on as low a firmware as possible, and you can still jailbreak using the open source versions of HEN and then update to GoldHEN once it becomes available for your firmware. So yeah, anyway, just wanted to give a quick kind of update on that. We've got GoldHEN up and running. Now that GoldHEN is available, I'll be creating a full beginner's guide on how to jailbreak the PS4 from start to finish with all the necessary info in there. It'll probably be quite a long video because of everything that needs to be covered there, but obviously that will be coming out fairly soon in the next day or two. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And once again, I'll hopefully see you guys